Thank you very much, Peter. It's now my pleasure to introduce our town manager, Jill Goldsmith, and with her is going to be our finance director, Alix Heilala.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and welcome everybody to the Summer Residence 75th Town Meeting. I'm Jill Goldsmith, your town manager, and I'm very pleased to be here tonight and working in collaboration with our select board, our town staff. We've had quite a year, and I can honestly say we made it through with a lot of collaboration, a lot of patience by you, and a lot of patience and dedication by our voters as well as our town employees. So I really want to congratulate them. So tonight's meeting is a virtual meeting, a hybrid meeting, as you see. And this was something that Channel 18 had a vision to forecast that we would need this. The town and our IT department had used Microsoft Teams, but we really didn't use it. We never thought we'd be having virtual meetings or answering our phones with our computers or having to work remotely. And that definitely was the case by about March 15th, 2020. So here we are. And I do want to note, as our non-resident taxpayers, our summer residents, that we've actually have a decrease in your amount of contribution to the tax rate, Mr. Moderator, and it's pretty amazing. So now summer resident, non-resident taxpayers comprise of 56% of our total taxpayers. And we saw that. We saw with COVID and people coming here and staying in their houses longer, some people converted to be full-time residents here, and we're happy to have you. I also want to note that in June of 2021, we had 302 more registered voters than we did in June 2020, for a total of 6,592 voters. So that's pretty exciting for us. So this was a familiar scene in late 2020 and through 2021. This is from our June 12th, 2021 annual town meeting, a Saturday on the field, with more than 750 voters attending the first day, and it was a 2-day event. It was our third outdoor town meeting on the field, an amazing pivot from our 2020 annual town meeting, which is usually held the second Monday in May. So tremendous efforts, and indoors, I should say, second Monday in May, and tremendous efforts by our dedicated staff and volunteers. So some of this information Chairman Kokolas had gone through, and I'm going to break it down just a little bit and quickly. So if we talk too fast and you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them at the end of the presentations. So it all starts with value statements. And the select board back in 2012 thought it was very important to vote these value statements, as you see here, and that's the precursor to our goals and objectives. And what I can say is items A, protect and enhance our financial health of the town. F, protect the environment, support the demographic diversity by addressing the unique needs of younger and senior populations. And G, enhance relationships and communications were essential for keeping the community connected during COVID, and lessons learned moving forward of keeping that commitment and that commitment to our social infrastructure. As we break down our value statements, we have goal statements, and these are the categories for the select board goals. We've been using these since 2012, but we did make a couple of tweaks to it. So annual goal categories were last updated in 2019 and 2020 with 3 to 5 objectives for each goal. And on July 13th, just a few weeks ago, the select board reviewed the goals and prioritized them. And they are posted to the website for the current cycle as well as past goal cycles, so you can see what was achieved and what was carried over as priorities. Social infrastructure is the newest category for us. That includes our child care voucher, our elementary school commitment, human service offerings, housing, and recommendation from the select board's Chatham 365 task force. Task, T-A-S-K, not tax. So here we go. It basically starts and ends with our budget summit. And our budget summit is comprised and participated by the Select Board, the Finance Committee, the Monomoy Regional School Committee administration, as well as committee members, administration, staff, and the public, you too as well. And it starts with the budget summit of looking back 2 years, as well as looking forward for another 3 years. And that occurred on October 27th, and that's when we usually have it in October. And then the board works through listening to what our financial priorities are, and we work through our goals and objectives. And as noted here, they voted the value statements and the goals and objectives on November 24th and just recently reviewed them again. We also don't forget about our capital improvement program and prioritization meetings. And the select board reviewed the Collins Center comprehensive indexing of capital projects. We had a couple of working group meetings, so they did that in December 2020, January, and throughout the budget process, culminating with another review on July 13th. And then our FY22 operating and capital budgets are submitted to the select board by myself as the town manager. That's one of my core functions. And then there's an extensive review process for about 7 months through April. As Chairman Kokolas had noted, it was pretty amazing. We retained our AAA bond rating. That's the highest bond rating that a municipality can have. That was the second review during COVID. The first one was in June of 2020. And then we had our annual town meeting on the field, so that was on June 12th and 13th. I'm going to turn this over to Alix, and she'll get into the numbers.
Thank you, Jill. Can everyone hear me? Think I'm good? Okay, thank you. Financial outlook, we're looking back, and especially with the pandemic, we were concerned. As you might remember, we cut our estimated revenues quite substantially for FY 2021, as well as cutting the operating budgets and cutting out some of the capital and CPA projects and deferred those until FY 2022, as the chair had mentioned in his opening statements. So just a quick rundown, our revenues, we had strong collections of local receipts. Tax revenue was also very strong at almost 98%, so that's right on par where we usually get. And we did receive over $1 million in grants for FY 2021 and 2022. A couple of items to note, the short-term rental tax, which was new in 2019, and we had a full year in FY 2021, and that's a 4% charge that comes to the town. So for the short-term rental tax, $1.3 million was collected from that revenue. And then the meals tax, we collected just under $350,000, and that's down $100,000 from the previous year. So you can see where the pandemic did impact the local restaurants. Our expenditures, our operating budget for the upcoming fiscal year, this fiscal year, FY 2022, shows a 2.59% increase over FY 2021, which again had been cut to really a COVID pivot budget. But we are considering this also as a core critical services budget under the COVID financial plan year 2. Again, not knowing the uncertainty of what might happen. We have strong reserves in compliance with our financial policies. The capital, as was mentioned, the FY 2022 capital budget is just $2,881,000, funded through available funds, no impact on the tax rate, and no drawing from the stabilization fund. Our debt, as was mentioned, we have authorization for the wastewater and stormwater projects, and we can fit that in without impacting the debt service budget negatively for the taxpayer. And then looking at the valuation of the town, and this is breaking news, we don't have the values certified yet. We will in the coming month, but we're looking at an estimated increase of almost 10%, 9.5% increase in the value of the town. That's the overall value. And that would equal a lower tax rate. So our tax rate right now is $4.98. We had projected it a 3.3% increase going into FY 2022, but it probably will drop from the current rate based on the values. As mentioned, debt service, this shows the existing debt in dark blue, our future wastewater in the green, future waterfront in light blue, very small. The drainage is that checkered at the beginning. So again, we present this every time we look at new debt to be presented to town meeting so the taxpayers have an idea of how that will fit into the debt service budget. we're trying to keep our debt service budget at or below the current level or the $7 million level that it was a few years ago. And we've been very, there are other ways of doing that, which I can mention later. Come on. I'm not moving forward. Why am I not moving forward? Oh, it's a delay. Sorry. Okay, as mentioned, our S&P bond rating was reaffirmed in April 29th, 2021 during COVID. And again, some of the items that they mentioned were very strong economy, very strong management, strong budgetary performance, very strong budgetary flexibility, very strong liquidity, adequate debt and contingent liability profile. Contingent liabilities are our OPEB, other post-employment benefits that will be referenced on the scorecard, and a strong institutional framework score. So very happy that we had that reaffirmed, as it provides for low interest rates and the continuation. Also mentioned earlier is capital improvements, the plan and the projects. We have a 5-year plan looking out into the future for our capital projects. So things that are in the queue keep on getting extended if they're not improved 1 year, so we push them out another year. So as we're looking at the FY 2022 budget, we've planned out 5 years for the capital items. Oftentimes you will have things that come up that you don't expect, and that's when we have to plan them, program them into the capital plan. And one of those items might be the water with the PFAS contamination. So again, FY 2022 to 2026, using the Collins Center and inventorying all projects regardless of the funding source, whether it's from the Community Preservation Act, Chapter 90, the Water Department, or debt service. So again, the capital budget, the town manager touched on this as well, that we begin this back in October with the budget summit, and it comes through the budget process, through the select board meetings and the finance committee meetings, and is finalized at the annual town meeting. So again, when we're looking at the factors, these are some of the categories which result in the rating of the individual capital items that get presented each year. So again, aesthetics, cultural, you can read this, it's very easy, but cultural recreational opportunities, utilization by the community, appropriate economic opportunity, youth and families was important, environmental sustainability, public health, and public safety are just some of the items that are the rating criteria. As mentioned also earlier, we did have some housing-related articles, and I won't go into the detail as it was mentioned, but we do want to say that some of these were funded through the Affordable Housing Trust Fund as well as free cash, so no impact on the taxpayer for the acquisition of the property. And then the 3 CPA articles, the town-sponsored, are the Community Preservation Act funds. And I'll turn it back to the town manager.
Thank you, Alix. Communication with the community and governing body is key to finding solutions, and this couldn't have been more important during COVID. These are our weekly newsletters started back in April of 2020 during COVID, and now expanded to include highlights of the select board actions or items to be considered at future meetings, hot topics, and activities. And you can subscribe via our website. The main sheet was a contest, and someone had suggested it because of our nautical heritage, but also Main Sheet and Main Street as being the forefront in getting the information out. So we thought that was a fun idea. And then to access this information through our town's website, 24/7, I listed some of the items. Many of them are familiar if you've read the warrant book or seen the budget presentations. We refer a lot to Budget Central. It has probably about 15 years of budget information, documents looking back, as well as current items that were just approved at the annual town meeting. And Town Meeting Central is pretty cool because it tells you who's who at town meeting and what town meeting is, which is very different than other parts of the country. So a really interesting and feeling the democracy of Massachusetts here, and it's really exciting for me coming from California to experience town meeting. And then we have our monthly reports to the select board. And then our last slide is a new launch. So we had a new launch of our website, and now we're on social media. So you can find us on Facebook and Twitter. And if you go on the town's website, you can sign up for Notify Me, which any topic that you're interested in, you'll get an email or a text, as well as our weekly newsletter. So thank you very much, and we're happy to answer any questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jill and Alex. We appreciate the presentation.